We don't have to be coy or shy about it. Sex without love is as hollow and as ridiculous as love without sex. Because times and cultures have changed, the venues and the means of expression of love might have changed. But the power of a man's sex drive has remained for him a constant force of both intimacy and destruction. And oh, how many good marriages it has destroyed. Listen up to what I'm telling you, ladies. If you are married, your husband depends on you to be his partner in his battle against sexual temptation. Your husband doesn't want you to have sex with him because you feel some sort of guilt. He wants you to want it with him. He wants you to have a desire to be with him. Based on surveys and polls, statistics have it that in 4 out of every 5 marriages, the men have been the one with a higher sex drive, and they have also been the primary initiators of sexual experiences. So ladies, don't be surprised or mad if you find out that he's always hot, that he always wants it. And although the average wife acknowledges that her husband's sex drive is stronger than hers, I fail to understand why she still tends to forget and underestimate the impact that this one factor has and weighs in a marital relationship. According to a poll of 150 Christian married brethren, 83% stated that they don't believe that their wives understand a man's sex drive. As Akbal D. Hartz puts it, husbands feel alone with their secrets and desires. They are at a loss sometimes about how to communicate this to their wives. When they try sometimes to talk about it and try to bridge the gap, they have been met with some sort of disinterest, scorn, or disdain. From most female perspective, male sexuality is often viewed as a dirty sort of desire. It seems to represent the worst of masculinity. Some women will call it passion without love, a drive without self-control, or sensuality without sensitivity. I've talked to more than one wife who would rather pretend that her husband's sexuality just did not exist. Some women claim to have a pretty good marriage, yet sex feels like just another chore she has to do. A woman once admitted that she hates that her husband thinks so much about it and about how frequent he always wants it. According to her, some nights she dreads going to bed because it's more likely that he's gonna ask for it. And then she'll take her time doing things going about the house, hoping that he'll fall asleep before she's ready for bed. Oh, she wish she could shut him down somehow like a computer. Sex shouldn't be a chore. It should be fun. I'm talking to you married sisters. Since you are married and it's rightful, legally and biblically okay to do so, go ahead and have that fun. And don't be so concerned about arriving at a destination. Rather take your time and enjoy the journey. As Robert Bryan once quipped, anyone who believes that the way to man's heart is through his stomach has really flunked in geography. Might be humorous, that statement, but it hits home with what any adult with a brain knows. Sex is very, very important to men. And that's why research consistently shows that between 80 and 90% of men view sex as the most important aspect of their marriages. And that's why research consistently shows that between 80 and 90% of men view sex as the most important aspect of the marriage. When asked that one thing that they would like to change in their marriages, they wish that their wives would be more interested in sex and more willing to initiate more physical bond and intimacy. Marriage experts Gary and Barbara Roseberg surveyed men about their sexual needs, and it was found out that majority of men indicated that mutual pleasure and female initiation of sex were among their primary sexual needs. There is no doubt that the spark on nudity and our sexually explicit culture plays into the prominence of sex in a man's mind. He can't flip through the pages of the newspaper, turn on the TV set, or surf the internet, or walk into a shopping mall without being reminded of his sexual desires. And yet, long before the internet or bikinis were invented, sexuality was an extremely powerful force in men's lives. History teaches us as much, and we can see traces of it even in the Bible. David and Bathsheba, Samson and Delilah, Reuben and Bilhah, the scriptures filled with references and examples of men falling into sexual temptation. Archaeological discoveries reveal that civilizations thousands of years ago had houses of prostitution in them. Solomon's warnings in Proverbs and his exaltations in the Songs of Songs, written over 3,000 years ago, are still completely relevant today. Times and cultures have changed. The venues and the means and expression of love might have changed. Yet the power of a man's sex drive has remained for him a constant force of both intimacy and destruction. Before we go much further, let me acknowledge that you may be married to a man who falls into the 10 to 20% of men for whom sex isn't all consuming. Although sex may not be as dominant a factor in your husband's life, it doesn't discount the fact that it is important. In fact, most men who avoid sex or minimize the impact of it in your lives do so quite because of some past painful experiences that they've had, or because of some sort of fear of future failure, or except he isn't just wired away, which is quite really rare. So regardless of how often your husband thinks or talks about sex, make no mistake about it, it is a vital aspect of who he is as a man. Listen to me real good, my spiritual sisters. Fasting and prayer is no escape route. 1 Corinthians 7 verse 5 clearly says, "Do not deprive one another, except by mutual agreement for a time, so you may devote yourselves to prayer." Mutual agreement is a crucial key in that passage. These days, you see some women embarking on a long-term fasting without the consent of the partner. And while you're trying to solve one problem through prayers, you don't know you've created another one. If there is no mutual agreement, do not wonder if your prayer seems not to be answered. Read the letter Apostle Paul wrote to the Corinthian church. It is good for man not to marry, but since there is so much immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman her own husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. Now from verse 7, "I wish that all men were as I am, but each man has his own gift from God. One has this gift, another has that. Now to the unmarried and the widows I say, it is good for them to stay unmarried, as I am. But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion." So, Paul commended husbands and wives to be sexually available to each other to avoid temptation. He then encouraged Christians to remain unmarried unless they have a strong sexual desire. According to Paul, battling sexual temptation is a significant reason for Christians to marry. So what happens to that man who marries because he burns, only to find out that his wife doesn't burn?